Today it's Emmanuel Pastereich at the Asia Institute. I want to say a few words about the recent elections in Pakistan, which have caused enormous controversy around the world for reasons which are opaque to so many of us in this. And in fact, there's some dispute now going on or stirred up, which has just left us even more confused. And so I wanted to reach out to Malik Ayub Sumbal, who's a geopolitical analyst, current affairs commentator, award-winning journalist and author, and a senior associate of the Asia Institute for some time, to ask about what the significance is of this election, specifically the contest, which in some ways is still going on between the Pakistan Muslim League and the PTI, and specifically the charges on both sides about the improprieties or inappropriate actions in the election, and then, of course, the response of the United States and other powers, China and the United States being the big ones, to this possibly quite historically significant event. So, what's the first thing that one has to understand about the significance of this election?
Thank you very much, Manuel, for having me in your this special program. So, as far as the Pakistani elections are concerned, so I think that these elections are much different than the previous elections, because we saw that it's been totally a very different kind of the trend that has been set in these elections, and the reason is this, that when we saw the previous you can say that the governments or the elections, there's always been allegations of the rigging and the intervention and the manipulation of the elections. So we also see in these elections, but one thing that is very much unprecedented in these elections is, first of all, that we saw a very long interim government. Mean that there are several question marks on the constitution of the country, the book according to which the country is being run, and the question mark on the role of the judiciary in the country. So we saw that it's been a clash of the institutes, it's been clash of the organizations, and overall, especially when a country like on a very dangerous situations, especially in terms of the economy and the security challenges. So all these allegations, we saw that the regime change narrative that is presented by the PTI, Imran Khan, that is also something like very much alarming, and though it exposed the Americans' intervention, and everyone knows that how US manipulate and intervene into the countries, this is not something new, but I mean that when we saw the Imran Khan era, so I mean that things change like very dramatically, and then ultimately PTI comes with such a big number of seats that was not being expected by the people, but the outcome of the election, and then the maximum number of the seats, that's become the independent, because all the measures that been like the military establishment has been made in Pakistan to stop PTI to coming into the power. But again, we saw that they got a handful number of seats. So these are all things that leads towards further chaos, and it's further led towards the political instability in a country that is face numerous challenges towards its economic and the security.
About this specific election, do you think I mean, it's not perfect, but do you think it was a reasonably fair election? Or you think that there are some fundamental questions as to whether it was a fair election?
So I mean that well, we cannot say it's a fair election, because you see that the before election, like the PTI has been even given a very tough time, and
I know.
they don't have the permission of the political campaigns. They have
Right,
been continuously harassed and intimidated with the police.
right,
How the police has been using as a tool to victimize a political party, though it's not the PTI at first time. We saw
right,
this the same trend at the time of the Nawaz Sharif when his government was toppled down, and he has faced the same things because in Pakistan the military establishment they want a rubber stamp government all the
right,
time
right, right,
that could come up and they could design the country foreign policy. They want to control the parliament in direct or indirect way. So it's not like the PTI that is where we see that they have been politically victimized. There have been the same story and the same problems that the PML-N faced. But what PML-N did, that Nawaz Sharif was surrender at that time in front of the military.
right,
He tried to build up his narrative against the military establishment, but he was failed. But when it comes to Imran Khan, so though he was the favorite guy of the military, he was taken into the parliament by the military at that time. So he has a close like trica, or he has a very close nexus with the military,
right,
and he was
right,
a favorite guy of the military. But once there is a change in the leadership in the military command, so
right,
then subsequently he has some his further plans that he would like to take his own military teams, the favorite journals, and then he would take the further upcoming election. Because when we saw at that time, he was in his last days of this government, he there was trending of the presidential election and the presidential kind of the government. So that was going to be smell out that he was planning to be moving country from a parliamentary to a presidential system, because inside Imran Khan government there is also very authoritative kind of the
right,
mean that his personality style, because in his government even there was no opposing voices. We saw that how the political
right,
victimization has been made in his government when he was there. So at that time it was also very much victimized the political rivals. Even the media was under tight control
right,
of his
right,
government. And yeah, and he want to take, actually he was planning some sort of the longer inning of the government, maybe 10 years, maybe more, and try to control all the things with
right,
his favorite journals.
right,
But subsequently the things change, and all this happened, that he has been given these days now that he has been controlled, and he was toppled down the government because there was different conspiracy theories inside Pakistan that he wanna going to make some extraordinary kind of these steps in which he
right.
wanna lead the country toward the bankruptcy. He wanna make some major things that could be very much hard for the country economy and the security fronts.
So the return of PTI to greater political power in Pakistan, what are the implications, for the region, and then for the United States, China, and other countries?
So what will be the next government? So the big question is right now this, that who is going to form the government. So the problem is this, that the majority of the candidates of the PTI, they are now mean that figure out and declare as an independent candidates.
Independent, right?
So being independent candidates, how much they got? So still the number is not confirmed, because it's overall independent candidates in which there are not all these candidates are from the PTI party. So
Right.
The problem is this, that the government will also be a coalition government, and so let's see now when PTI will sit into the government, or they want to go towards the opposition. If they will be in the opposition, of course they are very strong opposition. They will give tough time to the treasury benches and to the government. So it's all depend on the upcoming situation, that how Imran Khan take it. That is he going to be some sort of the compromising situation? Because in one province, of course, there are 4 provinces, and in one province, PTI is going to form the government. So if they make the government in one province, of course, they will be the part of the Federation of Pakistan, and they would move on. And but overall, I think that we see a weak political parliament. It's like a hung parliament, and of course, it could be it could be not an independent parliament that could make the sole decisions that would be favor in the public and for the country. So it's always dependent some sort of the external or internal factors.
Right. And if you imagine Imran Khan in terms of his strategy going forward, you think it's his intention to be in power again, to restore his position, or I mean, what if he manages to get back in the system again? What do you think he has in mind?
So, the problem is this, that if Imran Khan comes with his old team, I think there is no change until unless he will not
Right.
remove that circle that was surrounded him. The
Right.
circle that was Imran Khan was highly influenced, and the decision that was made by that circle, it is
Mhm.
same. I think there was nothing impact. All those promises that he made, he did not fulfill. The only benefit he got is this, that the vote that he got is actually the anti-establishment vote, the anti-establishment narrative that has liked by the public, because the people are much vulnerable. They are deprived. They are
Right. Right.
facing numerous pressure challenges. So this vote, actually, the anti-establishment vote, that's went to the PTI. And that went mean that it's a new trend, mean that the people got awareness that
Right.
to whom they should change. Mean that the vote of the power, mean that the powers of the vote, how they could change this. And this is a good trend.
Right.
We think that it's a healthy trend, and ultimately, if the people will got this sense that they will not give their votes to the feudal lords, they will not give votes to the other politicians and the corporate politicians and those who are nothing making to change the society. So I think this is a good trend, and if Imran Khan come up with this kind of the class in the parliament,
Right.
I think that could make some difference. But it's all depend about the situation that further unfolds, because the new government that is going to be formed will face numerous challenges, because they don't have anything to give the relief to the public, because
Right.
the
Right.
people the price hike and the inflation is at all-time high. So in
Right.
that case, how the government will serve to the people, it's not an easy task.
Right. I can imagine. Well, we have in the United States also, I mean, Donald Trump has been able to position himself as this sort of opposition to the so-called deep state, even though he himself is not particularly an opposition figure, but people are sort of yearning for something, someone to sort of lead them forward. And since he's the only one who actually appears in much of the media and they can even aware of, he gains a lot of support. It's, unfortunately, I mean, I wish that we had a more how do you say, true opposition, but that's the sort of reality. And I guess I'd like to ask you, from the point of view of the United States, or what the implications will be. Obviously, the United States is a complicated, enormous creature. There are certain factions who very much want to interfere in Pakistan and in Central Asia. What do you think the implications would be for the United States?
I personally think that the Biden foreign policy was totally failure. What he did into
Right.
the Middle East and what he is doing into the other countries. So he is now
Right.
a lot of pressure facing. Yeah, so it's ultimately a failure to the Joe Biden foreign policies, and they are totally failed what they did in Middle East.
Right.
What kind of the massacre is going on, and
Right.
how they have been a part of the war crimes with Israel. So the
Right.
world has seen, and
Right.
there is no mean that the US is not in a moral position to lecture anyone on the human rights when it comes
Right.
to this kind of
Right.
situation, that the American weapons has been used to kill the children in the Gaza. So
Right. Right.
these are the moments that no American president can justify. I mean that
Right.
how we saw inside America there is a opposition, how the American taxpayers' money has been used to kill the children in Gaza
Right.
and the
Right.
other part of the world. So mean that especially the blood of these Palestinians
Mhm.
is on the hand of American presidents,
Right.
along with the Israeli Prime Minister
Right.
Benjamin Netanyahu. So
Right.
America is a very awkward position right now,
Right.
becoming a part of these war crimes,
Right.
and simultaneously lecturing the world about the morality, and about the human rights. It's all like these Americans' double standards that the
Right.
world has been seeing how badly exposing.
Right. Well, American double standards, of course, is not new. It goes back 100 years, but it's reached a sort of a comic level now. Truly, I mean, of course, it's tragic ultimately, but there's something comic about it. And I myself, as an American, of course, in the political realm, have been truly disgusted at the way in which the Biden administration, Netanyahu, essentially became one administration, and essentially they're glued together, and they have undertaken, actions which I think the implications will go on for decades. It won't be immediately resolved. It will cost the United States in terms of legitimacy for decades.
Exactly.
Uh, anyway, I'm very glad to have the chance to learn a little bit, for us to learn a little more about Pakistan. What is your sense on a larger scale in terms of what Pakistan's influence will be in the region, with regards to India, to Central Asia, to the Middle East going forward?
So mean that it's all depend on the next parliament, like the next government, how the prime minister, the new upcoming prime minister, has the priorities to take this country, all these challenges. Because right now Pakistan is in the very serious and severe kind of challenges. It's whether it's a foreign policy, whether it's the internal security crisis, whether it is Afghanistan, whether it is Middle East. So all these things should be dissolved and should resolved according to the Pakistani constitution, and according to the betterment, and especially towards the that could benefit the country, because Pakistan is not in a position to make any kind of the foreign policy that could become the further division, and that could become further jeopardize the country. So especially the bigger challenge is now the economic challenge, of course, and how to overcome this economic challenge. It will not become an overnight, and it takes time. So what will be the consensus? The major thing is also the political stability in the country, because once the political stability will come up, of course the institution will line up, and those institutions who think that they are not under the constitution and they are within state, they should come up, and they should come under the constitution, and they should be given some mandate, and they should be lined up, and then I think that it's better. Things could move toward the optimistic and the positive way.
Well, I'm very impressed your emphasis on the Constitution. I myself in the United States have constantly emphasized the importance of the Constitution and its relationship to politics and governance. However, there are many people in the United States for whom the Constitution has become irrelevant in a politics of emotions and identity politics. What is your sense in Pakistan? Is there a sense that the Constitution is sort of contract between the people and government? Is it an issue, something that people are very aware of?
I think, being a law student, because I am also doing international law, so my focus would be on the Constitution, because this is the book that has written everything how to run a country. And then when the judges and the Supreme Court interpret this Constitution according to their own vested interest, then they of course bulldoze the Constitution. Similarly, the military, when they come up in power and they do the military coup, of course, they abrogate the constitution. And after that, we saw that how the country has been faced. We saw many dictators in the country. We saw the dictators like the Ziaul Haq, who has invaded the long Afghan war, and he became a tool of the Americans to disintegrate the Soviet Union at that time. We saw that how the Musharraf come up, and he started a long war, become a proxy of the Americans, and become a player of the Americans in the region. So dictators are very easy to hire by the military dictators are very easy to hire by the Americans, and but now I think that mean to hiring a dictators and to use them for the war crimes, I think it's becoming more difficult, because trending are changing, and it's getting very hard, especially for the militaries,
Right.
to yeah to come up with their own, mean that the dictatorship agenda, and to govern and rule the countries, because now the more and more awareness is coming. There is a strong agitation inside the public. So constitution is one of the document, I think, that is vital and compulsory for
Absolutely.
any country. And when the judges and the other, mean the other non-state actors, when they interpret and make the wrong interpretation of the constitutions, the problems start from there. And what we saw in Pakistan, mean that the interim government, mean that if the parliament and the parliament dissolved and the government end, then there is a specific time, and in this time there should be election. But we saw that an illegitimate and unconstitutional things are going on for the last 1 year.
Right. Well, let me ask you a final question about the military specifically. Does the military in Pakistan now include even as maybe just a faction or a small amount of people who are reform-minded, who want to have a more open and a better Pakistan? Or do you think the military is basically dominated just by those seeking out power and privilege?
The problem is this, that inside military also a specific class, mean that the ruling class, because a military is of course a very important institution, because we have a very disciplined military. But inside military, we saw a few journals, mean that when they come up, they want to keep in power, like mean extension. They want a more extension, one term chief of army staff, and then want another extension. So these things mean that they give them a privilege and give them a power to influence the parliament. So this is the dilemma. Of course, that if there is an accountability, if there is a very strong disciplinary actions inside the military, then of course mean that the military could be lined up, and they could come under the constitution. Because military in other countries, mean we see that the president is the commander-in-chief, and he is mean supreme commander of the armed forces of any country. So but in Pakistan, mean that the military is mean that they are so powerful in terms of making the constitution under their military rule, that they influence almost every kind of the constitutional things in the country. So that is the problem. And but now the things is this, that there is a massive awareness in the public, and the military rapport has been downgraded. This is a very alarming situation, that means that the respect, the dignity of the military that has been before several decades before, we cannot see right now. Because mean that the problem is this, that there is a 60% youth in this country who have degrees, who have the engineering degrees, they are doctors, they are highly qualified, but they are jobless. And then they see that there are retired generals on different organization heading. So these are the things that making them they're making them too much worried. And especially this narrative has been used by Imran Khan to see the mirror to the youth, that so these are the things that we see.
Well, we have
recently
in the United States, for example, there was a recent incident in which the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he took off 2 weeks for medical treatment because he's suffering from cancer, and he didn't report it to the president. In fact, didn't report it to anybody outside of the military, and it caused a little bit of controversy. It's not a very important incident, but it had a symbolic power, which was to say that large parts of the United States military have complete contempt for the Biden administration, in part. But it's complicated. On the one hand, it's contempt because the Biden administration is so useless and so incompetent, but it's also because the military has grown in terms of its budget and its authority, so it has contempt for civilian rule, and so it was intentionally trying to show that we don't have to tell the president what's going on, because we the president has no legitimacy. So it was a combination, I think, of both a growing contempt, of a growing military government, but also real real incompetence within the Biden administration.
Indeed, indeed. Mean that if the military is not under the control of the constitution and the parliament or the presidential system, then it's something like alarming for any country, because because it's something like raise the question mark about how the country hierarchy is working, and how a current system is working. So the military should always be under the control of the elected governments and the elected presidents, and who are the who are the real the custodian of all these rules and regulations.
Well, we see this is now coming back from Pakistan and the United States, but I think it's helpful to talk about both, because the crisis is not just about Pakistan, and in a way the United States is an even bigger crisis. So the current ongoing campaign in Israel and the Biden and Netanyahu administration have basically both sort of merged together as one administration, because both of them know that if they don't go forward with this push for war, that they'll all go to jail. I mean, both the Netanyahu group and the Biden group. So they're sort of forced to embrace world war as a way to stay out of jail. Tragically, very dangerously. And as we watch this process, we're very much aware of the way in which the United States has developed this whole military-industrial complex, really from the end of the Second World War, I'd say from 1943, 44, that no longer report to anything in the Constitution, and it's now merged together with global finance and IT companies and weapons manufacturers, and really forms its own reality with increasing contempt for Constitution and for governance. So it's not the same as Pakistan, but there is some parallel in that tension.
Exactly.
Well, listen, I really want to thank you for taking the time to tell us a little bit about the implications of the recent election and this reemergence of a challenge. I mean, I know it's incomplete, but at least there are some people within the PTI who are able to sort of stand up to this enormous amount of interference, and at least sort of create, even though it's not a perfect party in itself, at least a positive cycle to say we can have active politics again.